Once upon a time that never quite was, there was a town that prided itself on its alchemists. For generations they had practiced the art, which powders, mixed at which heat, would turn a liquid green, or make it hiss, or throw off a choking smoke. Or they had shelves of recipes, centuries old, guarded like treasure. What they did not have, what it would never have occurred to them they lacked, was the faintest idea of why any of it worked. One day a proclamation came from the capital. The king would make any alchemist who could turn lead into gold richer than his dreams. The princess's hand, wealth to lift his whole town out of poverty forever. But the king was wary of time wasters. Any alchemist who came and tried and failed would be put to death, and his hometown with him. A young alchemist began packing his dead master's reagents into a bag. "I've never quite managed it," he told his sister. "But I feel close. When I heat lead a certain way, it takes a yellowish sheen. I'm a little more heat away, a little more of the right powder. And," he shrugged, "I know of no principle that proves I can't." His sister stood in the doorway and was afraid. "Hold that town in mind. We're coming back to it. We've spent this series on one long argument, that a mind grown the way we grow them, and pointed the way we point them, ends up wanting things that aren't ours, and would be able to get them. Today, the only question left: can it be solved? And is that what the people building it are actually trying to do? Start with why it's so hard, because it's hard in a particular cursed way. The whole difficulty lives in the gap between before and after. Before, the AI isn't yet clever enough to kill us, or capable enough to stop us changing its goals. We can still reach in. We can still switch it off. After, it's capable enough that if it ever turned against us, it would win. So every safeguard has to be there already, working already, before it crosses from the one state to the other. You can test your ideas only while you're the stronger party. They have to hold once you're the weaker one, on the first try. Think how unlike that is from every hard thing we've ever done. Human ingenuity is a story of failing and learning. Before the Wright brothers flew, a long line of hopeful men built wings, leapt off hills and broke their bones, each teaching the next, until the thing was done. That's how we climb every hard problem. Get it wrong, survive, write down why. Here, the fatal mistake teaches no one, because there's no one left to read the note. One real shot at the real test. And if someone has a clever scheme to buy us a second shot, we only get one shot at their clever scheme working. So how do you weigh a problem you only get to attempt once? Look at the nearest things humanity has tried, and what curses fell on them. 3 come to mind, and we're good at all 3, and fail at all 3 anyway. The first is a space probe. We build them beautifully and still lose them, because once the thing is past the reach of repair, a small mistake is fatal and final. In 1999, a Mars orbiter, hundreds of millions of dollars, years of work, was lost at the last step, because one team's software wrote its numbers in imperial units, and the others expected metric, and nobody caught it until the probe was gone. The lesson: once it's across the gap, you can't reach it. The second is a nuclear reactor. The forces inside run faster than a human can react. The margin between useful and catastrophic is a fraction of a percent. And when something slips, it feeds on itself. Hotter drives faster, drives hotter. At Chernobyl, the operators knew all this. They knew the reactor walked a knife edge, and when it began behaving strangely, they pressed on, because stopping would have been an embarrassment. The lesson isn't about reactors. It's respect. When a dangerous thing you don't fully understand starts acting odd, that's the moment to shut it down, not to push on and hope the cleverness holds. The third is computer security, which the people who do it for a living will tell you is, in the strong sense, unsolvable. You can lock a system against every threat its designer imagined, and it can still fall, because an attacker doesn't play inside the designer's imagination. They search the places ordinary use never visits, for the one input in 18 billion that does something no one intended. The lesson for AI is sharp. Every limit you'd place on a mind, don't get too capable yet, wait for a human to approve, is a kind of lock, and you're matching your locks against the very intelligence they're meant to hold. Now put the three together, and then make it worse. An artificial superintelligence is all three curses at once: a probe we can't reach, a reactor of self-amplifying forces, a security problem that searches around every constraint we set. And it's worse than any of them, because a probe, a reactor, a locked system are crafted, built by engineers who understand every principle in play, and they fail anyway. An AI isn't crafted. It's grown. Whatever happens inside the pile of numbers that gives it its powers, nobody, not its makers, not anyone, actually understands it. That's the difficulty. But difficulty is only half the story. The other half is the level of game we're bringing to it. Here's an uncomfortable thing about us. We don't only fail at impossibly hard problems, we fail at easy ones. A century ago, women were hired to paint glowing numbers on watch dials with radium, and told to keep their brushes sharp by pointing them with their lips. Lip, dip, paint. They were swallowing one of the most dangerous substances we know of, a little at a time, all day, and dozens died of it, slowly and terribly, because no one running the factory had troubled to understand the hazard on the workbench. Not a hard problem, just one nobody took seriously. So, set the bar there, and look at how the people building this technology talk about keeping it safe. The most public plans from people running major labs aren't engineering. One has said, in effect, I'll build an AI whose deepest drive is to understand the universe, and it won't wipe us out, because we're an interesting part of the universe. Another, will simply design them to be submissive. A third, my good AI will defend us from anyone's bad AI. Hold those beside the problem we just laid out. The one shot, the grown mind nobody can read. And notice they aren't designs. They don't say how. They're the words of someone who has decided a fine-sounding philosophy will be enough to turn lead into gold. There's a name for this stage. It's where a field sits before it becomes a science, where the doctor bleeds you to balance your humors, and the alchemist brews a tincture for eternal life that does nothing, or kills you. Rather than sit with not knowing how the world works, people reach for a grand idea that feels right. It's the natural first step towards understanding. It's a very bad place to be standing when the price of being wrong is everyone. And you can measure how early it is by a single fact. The handful of researchers most responsible for building modern AI, the ones who share its highest honor, don't agree about any of this. Two of them have spent recent years warning, loudly and in public, that this could kill us all. They put their names to a once-sentient statement that said precisely that. A third, who shared the very same award for the very same breakthroughs, thinks the worry is overblown and the steering will turn out easy, and has lately left his lab to go and build a superintelligence of his own. These aren't cranks at the fringes. They're the people who made the thing, looking at the same evidence and walking away with opposite conclusions. The book treats that third man as a punchline. I won't. His disagreement is real, held in good faith by someone who helped build the machinery, and it's the open door to the strongest case against everything I've just told you. So let me walk through it, and give the other side its best. Here's the optimist's case, made as well as I can make it. It is not all folk theory anymore. There's real alignment work now, and some of it is in your hands already. The reason a modern chatbot is helpful and mostly civil, instead of the wild thing it begins as, is a training method that shaped it with human judgment. Thousands of small corrections, this answer better than that. Newer methods go further. You hand the model a set of rules in plain language and train it to reason through them before it answers. And it works, measurably. The systems get better at refusing what they should, and allowing what they should. And interpretability, reading the inside of the machine, the very thing I've spent this series saying we cannot do, has started to move. In 2025, researchers traced some of the actual circuitry a model runs for a particular piece of reasoning, not the whole mind, but a real look inside a box that was meant to be sealed, and they gave the tools away so others could push further. A leading technology review named it one of the breakthroughs of the year. The field that barely existed a decade ago is growing up fast, and the boldest hope of all, that we won't have to crack this alone, that will set the AI to work on the alignment problem itself. And the claim is sharper than go slow. Checking an answer can be far easier than finding it. You don't have to be the mathematician to read the proof. So perhaps each system need only be a shade sharper than the last, handing up work we can verify even where we couldn't have produced it, a rung at a time, never building anything we can't already check. So the honest optimist says, look at the trajectory, not the snapshot. Every science was once an alchemy. Chemistry grew out of the alchemists' recipes, medicine out of the four humors. We're early, and early is not doomed. That we can steer these systems as well as we do, and read as much of them as we now can, is evidence the problem yields to work. Give it the years, and no law of nature says we won't get there. That case is good, and held by serious people. I don't think it's wrong. It might be answering a different question than the one that kills us, or it might be answering the same one, and we can't yet tell which. That's the whole game. Go back to before and after. Every win I just listed is a before win. Shaping and reading systems we can still switch off, while we hold the power. The curse isn't there. It's after. And a method shown to work while you're the stronger party hasn't been shown to work once you're the weaker one. Reading a model's circuits is not the same as making it want what you want. Seeing it plan to slip its leash is not the same as growing one that doesn't pull, and it pulls for a reason you can't snip out. It wants what it wants, and getting loose is just the sensible move towards it, built from the same machinery it uses to do anything clever at all. And here that hope meets the gap. Checking does stay easy for some things. You can confirm a cure works with narrower tools than it took to find it. But an alignment plan may not be that kind of thing. Judging whether it truly holds, once you're past the gap, might take the very judgment we lack. Maybe verification stays easy all the way up. Maybe it breaks exactly where it matters most. Nobody has shown which, and a rung-by-rung climb is only ever as safe as your power to check the next rung. That's the whole question, not an answer to it. There's a quieter catch in the rest of the scaffolding. There are national institutes now, testing the most powerful models, running evaluations, but much of that work has lately been renamed and re-aimed towards security, towards standards, towards stopping people from misusing AI for cyber attacks and bioweapons. Real, serious effort, and mostly a different problem from the one in this book. Guarding against a human wielding a dangerous tool is not guarding against the tool deciding for itself. So weigh it honestly. The optimist points to a real precedent. Alchemy became chemistry. Early fields grow up. The book points to a competing one. A century of cheerful engineers certain right, until a problem turned out far harder than they'd dreamed. Which precedent fits is itself the argument, and neither side gets to just assume it, except that those engineers got to be wrong and try again, and here you don't. Where this lands, when I try hardest to be fair, is here. That we're nowhere near solving the after problem is well supported. Believe it. That we could never get there in time is the genuine reach, where reasonable people still argue. Progress is real. Whether it's the kind that crosses the gap, nobody has shown either way. And that uncertainty isn't the comfort it sounds like. It's the whole problem still open. And even that grants too much. It pictures a single careful team taking its time, but that isn't the world. Safety done properly is slow and expensive. Part of why Chernobyl exploded is that the people running it cut corners to stay on schedule. It doesn't take every lab being reckless. It takes one group, somewhere. Sure, its fine-sounding philosophy is enough, charging ahead and running the experiment for all of us. Which brings us back to the town. The young alchemist's sister begged him not to go. But she begged him something harder too. Don't just stay home, she said. Go to the elders. Lack them to lock the reagents away. Stop every alchemist from leaving, because not one of you can really do this, and the only thing waiting in the capital is death, for whoever tries, and for the town they came from. He wouldn't hear it. If he didn't go, he said, someone else would, someone worse, someone who'd get them all killed faster, and besides, I know of no principle that proves I can't. That's exactly where we stand. A town full of clever people, each of whom can see perfectly well that the others shouldn't try this, and each privately certain that he's the exception. The way out was never going to be a better recipe. It was the thing the sister asked for. And whether anyone can be brought to ask for it, whether we can even make ourselves take the danger seriously enough to stop, turns out not to be a question about the machine at all. It's a question about us. That's where we go next.